I was about 6 hours into a solo overnight drive when this happened. It was about 2 a.m., somewhere between states, on a long stretch of interstate that felt like it went through nothing. I'd had a late start after work, so instead of crashing at a motel, I decided to just power through and get home by morning. Stupid idea in hindsight. The road was mostly empty, just me, a few semis in the distance, and the occasional pair of headlights passing in the opposite direction. My world had shrunk down to the cone of my headlights, the white lines flashing under me, and the soft glow of the dashboard. The radio was just background noise at that point, something to keep my brain from falling asleep. That's when I noticed the headlights behind me. At first it was nothing, just another car coming up from behind. I remember actually feeling relieved, like, okay, I'm not the only idiot out here at 2 a.m. They were a ways back, two bright orbs in my rear view. I figured they'd pass me in a minute or two, but they didn't pass. They stayed where they were, not tailgating, not distant, just locked into this weird comfort zone, hanging a few car lengths behind me. I watched them in the mirror for a while, then forced myself to stop obsessing. People drive weird speeds all the time, no big deal. I focused on the road again. 10 minutes later, I glanced up. Same headlights, same distance, same lane. I tried a little experiment. I pressed the accelerator and bumped my speed up by 5, then 10 miles an hour. The road was straight and empty, so I figured I'd lose them or they'd finally go around me. The headlights got smaller for a second, like I was pulling away. Then they sped up too. They stayed right with me. Okay, that was weird. I eased off the gas and dropped back down. The car behind me did the exact same thing, matching my speed change almost instantly. At this point, my stomach had this tight, sinking feeling. I moved over a lane. They moved over a lane. I moved back. They moved back. It was like driving with a mirror behind me. I told myself it was just some bored driver zoning out and unconsciously pacing me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they were paying way too much attention to what I was doing. The stretch of interstate I was on had nothing but dark trees and fields on either side, no towns, no exits for miles. The isolation suddenly felt a lot more obvious. I decided to test it in a way that would force them to make a choice. Up ahead, I saw a sign for a rest area and fuel, about 2 miles. I put on my signal and got into the right lane early, making it obvious that I was going to take the exit. If it was just a coincidence, they'd finally pass me in the left lane. They didn't. They moved over behind me. The exit ramp came up. I took it. They took it. At that point, the maybe it's nothing narrative was dead. My heart started hammering. I tried to calm myself. The rest stop is lit. Maybe there will be truckers there. Just stay where people are. The ramp led to one of those combined rest area/gas station setups. Bright white lights, a couple fast food places closed for the night, and a large parking lot stretching around the building. I pulled into the lot and aimed straight for the gas pumps, even though I didn't actually need gas. I just wanted to be in the brightest possible spot. The car behind me followed me off the ramp and then slowed. I watched in the mirror as they stayed back, idling near the entrance to the lot, not committing to a pump, not pulling into a parking space. Just sitting there. The station was technically open, but dead. One car with a sleeping driver, a semi parked off to the side with its cab dark, and the clerk inside behind bulletproof glass. This wasn't the busy, safe kind of gas station. This was the bare minimum open kind. I pulled up to a pump and put the car in park, hands still on the wheel. I didn't get out. Instead, I pretended to check something on my phone while I watched through my mirrors. The other car crept forward a little, then stopped again. It was far enough back that I couldn't make out the driver's face, just a dark shape behind the glass. Their headlights were still on, high beams almost, flooding my mirrors with white. I felt completely exposed. I thought about calling 911, but what was I going to say? Someone's following me, I think. They hadn't done anything technically illegal yet. I needed more people around me. That was the only thought that actually felt solid. So instead of getting out, I put my car back into drive and eased away from the pump, heading toward the semi parked at the edge of the lot. I lined my car up near the truck's cab, like I was going to talk to the driver, and laid on my horn. 2 long blasts. For a second, nothing happened. Then the cab lights clicked on. Clicked. The truck's driver moved behind the windshield, clearly waking up and trying to figure out what the hell I wanted. At the same time, I saw the followers' headlights jerk slightly, like they'd been caught doing something they shouldn't. The car backed up a few feet, then turned as if to leave the lot. I didn't wait. While the trucker was still blinking at me and probably swearing, I rolled down my window and yelled, "Sorry! Thought I saw someone near your trailer." Loud on purpose. Loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. It wasn't true, but I wanted it to sound like I wasn't alone anymore, like there were now 2 sets of eyes, not just mine. The truck driver frowned, opened his door, and started climbing down to check. I used that moment to loop around the lot and head back toward the interstate on ramp, heart pounding. As I rolled past the entrance, I saw the followers' car again. They were paused near the exit, turned halfway like they were deciding whether to go left or right. When they saw me coming, their headlights swung around and they pulled out ahead of me onto the road. I slowed way down and stayed back. They got onto the interstate. I did not. I kept going past the ramp, following the signs toward a town that was still another 3 or 4 miles away. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight my fingers hurt. I watched the interstate overpass as I approached it, half expecting to see those same headlights waiting on the shoulder. They weren't there. I drove into the town and pulled into a well-lit hotel parking lot right off the road. There were several cars, a couple of bikes, and a lit-up lobby with someone clearly at the front desk. I parked as close to the entrance as possible and just sat there for a minute, shaking. I ended up going inside and getting a room for the night. Before I went up, I stood in the lobby for a while looking out at the road, expecting those headlights to reappear, to creep past the gas station sign, to turn into the lot. They never did. To this day, I don't know what that driver wanted. Maybe it was just intimidation. Maybe they were looking for someone driving alone who would panic, pull off on a darker exit, and give them a better opportunity. I'm just glad I went where there was at least one other person, even if that person was a confused, half-asleep trucker. I still do road trips, but when it's late and I see the same pair of headlights sitting in my rearview mirror a little too long, I feel that same tightness in my chest. And I don't power through overnight anymore. This happened about 3 years ago, and it's the reason I don't blindly trust GPS at night anymore. I was driving back home from a weekend trip, and I'd left later than I should have. It was fall, which meant it got dark stupid early. By the time I hit the highway, the sun was completely gone, and I was staring at a black windshield with occasional white and red streaks from cars passing. It was supposed to be a 4-hour drive. Around the halfway mark, I hit some construction, single-lane traffic, cones, the whole deal. The GPS rerouted me once, then rerouted again when I got stuck behind a slow semi. That's when the faster route available notification popped up. Save 22 minutes, it said. Take exit in 1 mile. I was tired, sick of staring at taillights, and 22 minutes sounded like a lot. I tapped accept without thinking too hard about it. I figured it would take me down some state road that ran parallel to the highway, maybe through a couple of small towns. Instead, the exit dumped me onto a two-lane road that immediately felt different. No big overhead lights, no steady stream of cars, just my headlights cutting through darkness and reflecting off a narrow ribbon of asphalt. At first it was kind of nice, actually. The road curved through wooded areas, the trees formed a tunnel overhead, and the glare from oncoming traffic was gone. I turned the music down and cracked my window halfway. The air smelled like damp leaves and earth. The GPS voice told me to keep going, straight for 18 miles. 18 miles felt like a lot, but I shrugged it off. My tank was half full. I had service. It was fine. The further I went, though, the more the road changed. The yellow lines in the middle disappeared. The pavement went from smooth to patched and cracked. Potholes started showing up, forcing me to slow down and weave around them. The trees got denser on both sides, pressing in close enough that the branches overhung the road. My high beams felt swallowed. My phone dipped in and out of service. 1 bar, then none, then back to 1. The little no service icon popped up once and stayed for longer than I liked. I checked the map view. The blue line snaked through a sea of dark green that was labelled as some kind of state forest. No towns, no side streets, just this lonely little road. I started to get that creeping awareness of how remote I actually was. No houses, no streetlights, no other cars behind or in front of me, just the crunch of my tyres and the occasional rustle of something moving in the woods. About 10 minutes into this, the road narrowed again. It went from 2 narrow lanes to 1.5, I guess. Technically 2, but if another car came the other way, we'd both have to slow to a crawl and squeeze by. Grass and gravel were creeping up onto the edges of the asphalt. I clipped a branch with my side mirror and flinched. The GPS cheerfully announced, "Continue for 4.7 miles. I remember thinking, after this you'll pop out onto a bigger road and you'll laugh about being creeped out. Then I came around a gentle curve and saw it. Something was blocking the road. I hit the brakes and my car rolled to a stop maybe 30, 40 feet away. At first I thought it was a fallen tree. It spanned the entire width of the road. My brain labelled it as storm damage before my eyes actually caught up to what I was seeing. The trunk looked placed, not ripped out of the ground, not shattered, just a big log laid across the road with its ends in the ditch on either side. The branches had been cut clean off. There were no scattered leaves, no broken shards, just one neat obstacle exactly where you'd have the least room to go around it. And that's when another detail slid into focus. There were tracks in the dirt at the edges of the road, tyre marks from more than one vehicle, all turning around in the same tight space where I'd just stopped. For a few seconds I sat there with my hands still on the wheel, my high beams shining directly onto that log. The forest on either side of the road looked impossibly thick. The sky above the trees was a blank, starless black. You know that feeling when your instincts finally catch up and slam into you? I felt it then. This wasn't an accident. This was a barricade. And I'd just driven myself into a perfect little pocket with one way in and one way out. I put the car in reverse before I even fully formed the thought. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I started backing up slowly, eyes flicking between the rear view, the side mirrors, and the road ahead. That's when I saw movement in my headlights. On the right side of the road, just beyond the log, something shifted between the trees. The shape of a person stepped out from behind a trunk, just enough for me to see a shoulder, the outline of a head, the pale oval of a face. They weren't wearing any kind of high visibility clothing, no flashlight, no attempt to signal or wave me down like they needed help. They were just there. watching. Another shape moved to the left, further back. Not as clear, but enough to know there was more than one person in those trees. I didn't wait to see anything else. I stomped the gas and reversed faster, feeling the back wheels slip a little in the gravel as I tried not to fishtail. The road behind me was just as narrow and unforgiving, and I had this horrible image of backing straight into another car with no lights on. I didn't see anyone in the mirror. For a second I thought, maybe they're not following, and then my right headlight caught another figure stepping closer to the road, just on my periphery, as if they'd been about to walk out in front of my car. I cranked the steering wheel into a sloppy three-point turn, tyres scraping the ditch on one side and the edge of the forest on the other. Branches scraped along the side of my car with that nails-on metal sound that makes your teeth hurt. Once I was pointed in the other direction, I floored it. For the first time since I'd turned off the highway, I wanted other cars. I wanted police. I wanted witnesses. Instead, it was just me and that narrow road, my high beams shaking every time I hit a bump. After maybe a minute of driving like that, I checked my rearview. For a split second, I thought I saw headlights flick on far behind me, around one of the curves. Two small dots in the darkness. Then, they were gone. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it wasn't. My phone finally picked up service again when I got closer to the main highway. I didn't call 911 right away because I didn't even know what I'd report. There's a tree and some people in the woods sounded insane, but the longer I drove, the more the adrenaline ebbed, and the more it scared me that there might be someone out there using that same setup over and over. I did end up calling the non-emergency number when I stopped at a gas station, and they transferred me to a local dispatcher. I told them where the GPS had routed me, what I saw, and what I thought. The woman on the phone was quiet for a moment, then said, "You did the right thing turning around. We'll send a unit to check it out." She didn't sound surprised. I don't know what they found, if anything. All I know is that if you're driving at night, tired and alone, and your GPS cheerfully tells you it can save you 20 minutes by sending you down a dark road in the middle of nowhere, sometimes wasting that extra 20 minutes on the highway is the safest choice you can make. I used to think rest areas were safer than parking on the side of the road. After this night, I realized public doesn't always mean safe. It was around 3 a.m. when I pulled into the rest stop. I'd been driving for hours, my legs were stiff, and I'd pushed my luck with coffee and energy drinks enough that I really needed a bathroom. The rest area was one of those older ones, just a main building with bathrooms and vending machines, a ring of parking spots, a couple of picnic tables you could barely see, and a handful of trucks parked way in the back. The big highway rolled past just beyond a strip of trees, a low, constant roar that sounded weirdly distant. There were lights, but not many. A couple of tall lamps in the lot, a buzzing fluorescent above the building entrance, and some dim bulbs over the vending machines. Everything else was shadows. I parked under one of the lamps near the building, locked my car, and grabbed my phone and keys. I noticed a few other vehicles around. Two semis, a beat-up minivan, and what looked like an old sedan parked in the far corner. No one else was walking around. Inside, the men's restroom was the same as every other highway restroom. Echoey, tiled, overly bright. The smell of disinfectant barely covered the other smells. One of the stall doors was shut. I went to the urinal, did my business, and washed my hands. As I was drying them, the stall door opened. A man stepped out. I saw him in the mirror first. He was off. Mid-40s maybe, taller than me, thin in that wiry way where you can tell there's strength under it. He was wearing a dark jacket and jeans, nothing remarkable, but his eyes were wrong. They were too wide and too fixed, like he was trying not to blink. He didn't look at the sink, he didn't look at the mirror, he looked directly at me. I gave that little half nod guys give each other in bathrooms. Neutral, non-aggressive. I see you. You see me. We move on. He didn't nod back. He just kept staring. I turned off the water, grabbed a paper towel, and made myself go through the normal motions. Dry hands. Toss towel. Don't rush. If you rush, you show you're scared. But I was scared. He stepped aside out of the stall doorway and just stood there, not going to the sink, not heading for the exit, just positioned himself a little to the side of the door, like he wanted to be between me and it. We were the only two in there. Night, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Nothing, not even a grunt. Up close, I could see a few more details. His clothes looked dirty, but not like he'd been working hard, more like he'd been wearing the same outfit for days. There were faint stains on his sleeves. His hair was greasy and flattened in some spots, like he'd been sleeping in a car seat. I walked toward the door anyway. As I passed him, he shifted just enough that I had to angle my body sideways to get by. We were close enough that I could smell him, sweat, cigarettes, and something else I couldn't place. He leaned in slightly and said very softly, "You driving alone?" It was the way he said it. Not curious, not friendly, just probing. I pushed the door open and stepped into the hallway without answering. The lights outside the bathroom felt dimmer, even though they probably weren't. I could hear the buzz of the vending machines and the hum of the old soda cooler. My pulse was loud in my ears. I didn't look back to see if he'd followed. I just headed straight for the exit. As soon as I stepped outside, the chill hit me. The lot looked even more empty than before. My car was sitting alone under the lamp, a little silver bubble of safety that suddenly felt way too far away. I forced myself not to run. Keys in hand, I clicked the unlock button and heard the faint beep. I walked around to the driver's side, opened the door, and slid in. Doors locked. Engine on. Headlights on. Only then did I look back toward the building. He was standing in the entrance just inside the glass doors, watching. We locked eyes for a second. He didn't move, didn't come closer, just stared. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking space, my stomach still in knots. In my head, I was already writing it off as one of those creepy but ultimately harmless encounters you look back on and laugh about. I pulled toward the exit that looped back to the highway, checking my mirrors like I always do. That's when I saw headlights flare to life behind me. A car in one of the far corners of the lot, the old sedan I'd noticed when I came in, had just turned on its lights. It pulled out of its spot a little too quickly to be casual and started heading for the exit lane behind me. I felt ice go down my spine. I got onto the on-ramp and back onto the highway, trying to convince myself that other people leave rest stops too, that it might be coincidence. Then the sedan merged onto the highway directly behind me, not 2, 3 car lengths back, right behind me. Its headlights were high and bright in my rear view, filling it with glare. I couldn't see the driver, but I didn't have to. I knew. I tried to play it cool. I set my cruise control at the limit and stayed in the right lane. If they wanted to pass, they could. They didn't. They stayed glued to my bumper. My palms were sweating on the steering wheel. The highway ahead of me was mostly empty, just a dark ribbon with reflective dots, gently curving off into the distance. The next town was still miles away. The next exit sign I saw said, "Rest area, 15 miles. Not helpful. I signalled and moved into the left lane like I was passing an imaginary vehicle. So did they. I slowed down a little, hoping they'd get annoyed and pass. Instead, they slowed too, matching me, keeping the same distance. Every time I checked the mirror, those headlights were there. Too close, too bright. I thought about slamming my brakes to force them to either back off or reveal their intentions. But if this guy was what I thought he was, braking checking him could spiral into something worse. I decided to try something different. Up ahead, there was an exit for a small town, one of those that just has a gas station, a fast food place, and a few houses. I put my signal on early and got into the right lane, making it obvious. The sedan stayed behind me. I took the exit. So did they. At the end of the ramp, there was a stop sign and a T intersection. Right went toward what looked like the town. Some lights, a few buildings. Left looked like nothing. I turned right. The sedan turned right. That confirmed it for me. This guy wasn't just leaving the rest stop at the same time. He was following me. I sped up, heading toward the gas station I could see up ahead. It was one of those 24-hour ones with a bright canopy over the pumps. There were a couple of cars there, and I saw at least one person moving inside the store. I pulled in fast, not even bothering to pick a specific pump, just getting as close to the building as possible. I threw it in park, killed the engine, and jumped out, keys in hand. The sedan pulled into the lot too, but didn't come to the pumps. It slowed near the entrance, circled once, and then parked at the edge of the lot, headlights still on. I walked straight into the store, heart hammering, and went for the counter. The clerk looked up from their phone. "Everything okay?" he asked. I leaned in, low enough that the cameras probably picked it up, but no one else outside would hear. "There's a guy in that car," I said, nodding toward the sedan. "He was acting really weird at the rest stop up the highway. I think he followed me here. If anything happens, can you call the police?" The clerk's expression sobered immediately. He glanced out the window, then back at me. "Stay inside," he said. "You want me to call now?" I hesitated. The sedan hadn't done anything overtly threatening yet. I watched it through the window as we talked. The headlights stayed on, pointed toward the pumps, like he was watching the station, waiting. "Yeah," I said finally. "I'd rather feel stupid than end up on the news." The clerk picked up the phone. I wandered over toward the coffee machines, trying to look casual, but my eyes stayed locked on that car. About a minute later, like a switch had flipped, the sedan's headlights went off. The engine started to sound quieter, like it was being shifted into gear. Then the car rolled slowly out of the lot, turned onto the main road, and disappeared. I stayed there another 15 minutes anyway, just in case he was lurking somewhere nearby. A cop eventually did a drive-through of the lot, spoke briefly with the clerk, and then came over to talk to me. I told him everything: the bathroom, the staring, the question, the car. He nodded along and finally said, "You did the right thing coming somewhere public and staying put. We get guys like that sometimes. They look for people travelling alone." Nothing ever came of it, at least nothing I heard about. No plate number, no arrest, no dramatic conclusion. Just a night where something almost happened and then didn't because I made enough noise and went where there were more eyes. Now, when I'm on a long drive and I really have to stop, I still use rest areas sometimes, but I park under the brightest lights. I keep my keys in my hand. And if someone in the restroom stares too long and asks if I'm driving alone, I don't answer, and I don't go straight back to the highway either.